Let me start with the moment it all changed. I was sitting in a bland doctor's office, still wearing my work boots, still smelling like coffee and printer ink, when a man in a white coat looked me in the eye and said, "We need to run a few more tests, but based on what we're seeing, it's serious." I remember blinking twice, then laughing, not because I thought it was funny, but because my brain refused to register the words. "You're saying, what? How serious?" His voice softened. "You need to prepare for the possibility that we're dealing with something terminal." I'm not the kind of guy who cries easily. Grew up in a blue-collar family, raised to grit your teeth and push through. But that day, I walked out of the clinic, sat in my truck, and just stared at the steering wheel for half an hour. Didn't even turn the key. I had a wife, a daughter, a business I'd co-founded with my best friend that was finally showing signs of life, and now I had a ticking clock over my head. The first thing I thought about wasn't death, it was them. I decided not to tell my wife right away. I told myself I needed more answers, that I didn't want to scare her, but deep down, I think I just needed to feel like I had control over something, anything. I kept going to work, kept making school lunches, kept fixing leaky faucets and charging the car and pretending everything was fine, but it wasn't. Inside, I was unraveling. I finally told her 3 weeks later. We were standing in the kitchen, she was scrolling her phone. I was cutting carrots for dinner, thinking about how absurdly normal everything looked. "I need to tell you something," I said. She didn't look up. The doctors think I might be seriously ill, possibly terminal." She blinked, put her phone down, stared at me for a long second, and then she said, "Well, what happens to the mortgage if you die?" No. "Are you okay?" No hug, no tears, no fear. Just numbers. I stood there with the knife still in my hand, wondering if I'd imagined her voice. But no. She was already opening a spreadsheet on her laptop. "Will insurance cover this? How long can we stretch savings? What about the child support if something happens?" Child support. She said it like I was already gone, like I was a liability. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was scared, but because I finally understood something that had been whispering to me for years. She didn't love me. Maybe she never did. I had worked my hands raw for our life, paid off her student loans, supported her when she quit her job to find herself, put up with her snapping, her mood swings, her slowly growing distance, and now, at the moment I needed her most, I was just a bill to her. I didn't tell her about the next set of tests, didn't tell her when the results came back that I was fine, that there had been a lab error and my second and third screenings were clear. I didn't tell her when our company, the one she said would never amount to more than a hobby, landed its biggest client yet. Didn't tell her about the bonus, the shares, the future, because something inside me had started to shift. I had spent so long sacrificing everything for a marriage built on a foundation I hadn't looked at closely enough. And now, I had time, money, clarity, and no more excuses. You'd think a man might take a second chance at life and run straight back to the arms of the woman he once loved. I didn't, because when the doctor called to say it was a false alarm, I didn't feel relief. I felt betrayal all over again. Her face that night, the coldness in her eyes, the way she stared past me like I was already gone. It didn't leave me, not even when I stared in the mirror and tried to tell myself everything was fine. The truth is, I didn't feel married anymore. That's when I met Julia. Before you judge, hear me out. She wasn't some secret mistress. She wasn't planned. She was just a friend of a friend, someone I bumped into at a networking dinner for small business owners. She laughed at my awkward joke about the mystery meat they served, said her bakery used the same supplier. We talked for 10 minutes, then 20, then 2 hours. And for the first time in years, I felt seen. We didn't do anything inappropriate. Not at first, but I started to text her, just small things, business tips, dumb memes, jokes about life. It felt harmless until it didn't. I realized I was saving her messages. I realized I was rereading them before bed. I realized that one night I looked over at my wife asleep next to me and felt like I was lying in a stranger's bed. Meanwhile, things at home just decayed. She didn't ask about work anymore, didn't seem to notice when I stayed late or left early. She spent most of her time scrolling social media or out with friends. Our daughter, bless her, started asking if I was okay. Kids notice more than we think, I told her. I'm just figuring things out. She nodded like she understood more than I meant. It wasn't until our anniversary, the one she forgot, that something broke for good. I came home early, had dinner plans, small gift, a note I'd rewritten 5 times, but she wasn't home. Her phone was off. She came back at midnight. No apology, no explanation, just kicked off her heels and asked, "Why are you up?" I didn't answer because I was already gone inside. 2 weeks later, she found the text. She exploded, accused me of cheating, called me heartless, said I was abandoning my family. I told her, "You abandoned us a long time ago. I just didn't see it until now." And she cried. threw things, threatened to take our daughter, said she'd ruin me, but I didn't budge. I didn't raise my voice because I knew the truth, and deep down, so did she. Then came the final nail. I came home early from work, again, not because I suspected anything, just because I missed my kid. I walked in, quiet, calm, and there she was, on the couch, with someone else, his shirt, her smile, my home. She saw me, and didn't even flinch, didn't cover up, didn't apologize, just stared, like it was my fault for walking in. That night, I packed a bag, took my daughter, drove to my parents' house, filed the paperwork the next morning, transferred all my assets to my dad's name. She'd get nothing, not even the coffee maker. But this wasn't revenge, this was revelation, and soon it would become redemption. When I handed my lawyer the folder, he raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure about this?" I nodded. "She gets nothing. I've already transferred every account, every asset, every share into my father's name. Won't hold forever. It'll hold long enough." It wasn't about punishment, it was about clarity. About finally doing something that felt like peace instead of survival. The court battle wasn't easy. She fought, claimed emotional distress, said I was mentally unstable because of my health scare, tried to paint me as a negligent father and a cheating husband, but her story cracked fast. The text messages, her cold reaction to my diagnosis, her affair, all of it was documented. In the end, the judge didn't hesitate. Full custody, sole parental rights. She barely looked at me when the ruling came down, but I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger, just quiet. My daughter moved in with me and my parents, mostly my mom, who adored her more than life itself. I kept things calm, stable, happy, no yelling, no tension, just love and quiet meals and bedtime stories and healing. One night, my daughter asked, "Are we going to be okay now?" I hugged her. "We already are." Meanwhile, the company, it exploded. What started as a two-man tech consulting firm turned into a full-service software agency with recurring contracts, a remote team, and our first investment offer. My co-founder and I signed the biggest deal of our lives the same week the divorce finalized. I didn't tell anyone, not even my family. I just deposited the money, paid off every debt, and put the rest into my daughter's future, and went to sleep for the first time in years without checking the clock. Julia and I, we stayed friends. She never pushed, never crossed lines, just checked in, sent dumb memes, asked about my kid. Eventually, we had coffee, then dinner, then a quiet walk under fall leaves that didn't need to end in anything. We were just real, honest, unrushed, and that was everything I needed. A year passed. One day, I got a call from my lawyer. He was chuckling. "You'll never believe who filed an appeal." I didn't even need to ask. She'd found out about the money, about the company, about the calm, and now she wanted back in. Too late. The appeal was denied. She showed up at my parents' once, tried to talk to my daughter through the fence. My mom stepped out with a tray of lemonade and said, "This isn't your home anymore, sweetie." She left without another word, but the last chapter, though, the one that stuck with me, didn't come until much later, and it happened in the most unexpected place. A tiny cafe with weak coffee and one last glance at the past. It had been 3 years since the divorce, and since the cold kitchen conversation, since I walked away from the version of my life that looked stable on paper, but felt like drowning. My daughter was thriving, bright, kind, stronger than she even realized. My parents, especially my mom, gave her the kind of home I didn't realize I'd been missing myself. And me? I was okay. I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable. The business was steady, the house was quiet, my health was good, my heart was healing. One rainy Tuesday, I stopped into a cafe I'd never been to. I was between meetings. Needed a pick-me-up, just a black coffee and a quiet seat. The place was small, old floors, wooden chairs, chalkboard menu. The kind of place that smelled like warm bread and nostalgia. I walked up to the counter and was about to order when I saw her, behind the register, hair tied back, apron stained, eyes dull, my ex-wife. She didn't see me at first. I stepped forward slowly. When our eyes finally met, there was no shock, no recognition, just tiredness. The kind you can't fake. I looked down, ordered my coffee, slid a $100 bill into the tip jar without a word. She rang me up in silence, and I left. I didn't feel angry, I didn't feel smug, just sad. She had everything once. A family, a home, a man who would have moved mountains for her, and in the moment that mattered most, she chose herself. Not out of strength, but out of fear. I don't know what happened to her after the divorce. I didn't ask, didn't look. But seeing her there, a shadow of the woman she used to be, told me enough. That night, I sat on the porch with my daughter. We watched the rain slide off the roof and into the soil below. She asked why I looked so quiet. I just smiled. "Just remembering who we are," I said. She nodded like she understood. So here's my question. Was it my conscience that tipped her $100? Or was it justice? Did I do the right thing, or did I just walk away with the last word? I still don't know, but I do know this. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't fire, it's peace. But not all doors stay closed. A few months passed. I was at home when I got a message from an old friend. We hadn't talked since college. The message was short and included a photo. A woman standing outside a gas station, wiping down the windows. She looked familiar in the way a worn photograph does. "Isn't this your ex?" the message said. I saw her working there. Looks like life hit her hard. I stared at the screen for a long time. My stomach turned, not with anger, not even pity. Just something cold and quiet. I didn't reply, but I couldn't shake it, so I called someone I trusted who still lived in the area. "Have you seen her around?" I asked. His pause was answer enough. "She fell far after we split. The man she left me for ghosted her after 3 months. She tried getting back into her old career, but too much time had passed. She had burned bridges on her way out, and now they weren't interested in rebuilding them. She bounced around different jobs, retail, customer service, warehouse work. Her LinkedIn didn't match reality anymore. She ended up working night shifts, took a job at a vape shop, then the cafe. She lives in a 1-bedroom apartment above a liquor store now, no car, she rides the bus, no friends I could trace, no contact with our daughter. She'd vanished from the world she used to try so hard to impress, and she never once tried to reach out. Do I feel good about any of this? Number, but I feel resolved. There was a time when I would have done anything for her, when I thought love meant carrying someone even when they stopped walking, when I believed that giving and giving without return made me strong. Then I got sick, or at least I thought I did. And when I told her, when I stood in our kitchen with trembling hands and fear crawling up my throat, she looked at me and said, "What happens to the mortgage if you die?" Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "We'll get through this." Just money. That moment rewrote our whole history. That was the day something snapped quietly inside me. I started looking at everything differently, from our relationship to our memories to what I thought love was supposed to feel like. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathing beside me and wondering how long she'd felt so far away. I began noticing things I'd ignored before, how she flinched when our daughter hugged her, how she only smiled when someone was watching, how her love had become something performative, and slowly the guilt I'd carried for being tired, distant, overwhelmed, it shifted. I realized I wasn't the one who left emotionally. She did. Long before the divorce papers, long before the diagnosis, she had already checked out. Final update. Part 2 of 2, the tip, the closure, and the quiet. I left her quietly, legally, completely. I transferred my assets, got full custody. She didn't fight hard, maybe because she couldn't, or maybe because she didn't want to. And when I saw her again at the cafe, I didn't feel rage, I didn't feel victory, I felt done. So I left a $100 bill in the jar. As a farewell, as a last kindness, maybe both. Maybe I wanted her to know she hadn't broken me, or maybe I just wanted to walk away knowing I still had something left to give, even if it wasn't to her. The cafe closed a few weeks after that. I drove by, boarded windows, handwritten "For Lease" sign crooked in the door. Like the final nail in the coffin of whatever used to be us. I didn't stop, I didn't take a picture, I just drove quietly, like closing a final chapter. My daughter is thriving, she's in school, has friends, she laughs now, really laughs. She doesn't ask about her mom much, but one night she said, "Do you think Mom misses us?" I took a breath. "I think she misses who she used to be when we were together," I said, and that seemed to be enough. I've rebuilt a life. It's not glamorous, but it's real. I cook, I clean, I work hard, I spend weekends at the park. Julia is still in the picture, kind, calm, and steady. She doesn't ask me to be more than I am. That's a gift I didn't know I needed, and sometimes at night I think about that tip, that moment, that jar. Was it closure? Was it mercy? Was it the softest version of revenge? I'll never know. But I do know this. I walked out taller than I walked in, and I never looked back. So here's my final thought. Maybe that tip was my way of saying, you didn't break me, or you freed me, and maybe that's the most painful truth of all. I said I wouldn't look back, and I haven't. Not really, not in the way that means you're stuck in the past, but healing isn't a straight line, and lately, I've realized there was one thing I never told anyone. What happened the very next day after I saw her in the cafe. I hadn't planned to go back, but something gnawed at me. Not regret, not curiosity, just this strange ache in my chest, like something was still unfinished. So I went. Same cafe, same time. She wasn't there. Another girl was working the counter, young, nervous smile. I ordered coffee, glanced around. Empty booths, quiet music. I asked the barista, the woman who was here yesterday, is she off today? The girl looked at me like I'd said something wrong. Then she whispered, she quit this morning, left her apron on the counter and walked out before the shift started. Didn't say a word. I thanked her and left. I don't know what I expected. Closure? A thank you? A confrontation? I got none of those. Just a cold morning, a half-full coffee cup, and an invisible door closing behind me. Weeks passed, and then something weird happened. She messaged me after all that time, silence. And then suddenly, a 5-word text. Thank you for the tip. No name, no apology, just that. I stared at the screen for a while, then I typed, you're welcome, take care of one. And I blocked her because I meant it, and I also meant for it to be the end. There's a lesson in all this. One I keep relearning. Sometimes the people you give everything to are only meant to be passengers. And sometimes they don't get off the train. You have to stop it and ask them to leave, for your sake, for your peace. I'm not proud of how long it took me to understand that, but I'm proud I finally did. My daughter, she's still my anchor. Still the reason I make pancakes on Sundays and check the locks twice every night. We're planning a road trip soon. Just the two of us. Mountains, lakes, bad music on loudspeakers, and Julia's still around. She doesn't try to fix me, she just stands beside me. That's more than enough. So, if you've been reading all this, thank you. I never thought strangers on the internet would be part of how I healed, but somehow writing it out here helped me say the things I couldn't say out loud. Especially the last thing. She didn't break me, she revealed me, and I like who I found beneath the wreckage.